Now, I want to welcome to the program right now from the Independent Women's Forum, Julie Gunlock is with us. Julie, how are you today?
Doing well, thanks.
Excellent. It's good to see you. What have you been writing about this week?
I've been writing about a bunch of stuff that isn't published yet. So yeah.
We'll get to it.
Yeah, I know. Parenting, GMOs, the regular stuff.
All right, the regular stuff. Well, we are in the summer months now, so it's the sunscreen warnings. It's the pool noodle warnings. I mean, right there are so many new things. There are seasonal. You talk about the culture of alarmism. I wonder if are there seasonal alarms that happen every this time of year every year.
There definitely are. And if I were a better writer, I would kind of remember those things and write about them. But one thing that's interesting, there's a couple things. First of all, we're just about to have Father's Day. And I think, it's a pretty common thing to disregard the work and sacrifice of fathers. So that's one thing I plan to write on. And the other thing is that I think that around this time, you have incredible restlessness among kids. They're tired of being in school. Many public schools, they keep you until the bitter end. I mean, I don't really think my kids are learning a lot in school right now, and that's no, insult to their teachers. It's just towards the end of school, it winds down and the kids get really restless. And what was interesting today was I got a letter from the school principal saying that, and I'm going to say this wrong, there's this sport that's called parkour. Am I saying that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Parkour, right? Okay. And parkour, I guess, involves jumping off high places or sort of jumping from one high place to another. It might not even require high places. It's sort of, you try to jump from sort of scary space to scary space. I don't know. Am I characterizing that correctly?
Kind of. I mean, you run up walls and stuff. If you've ever seen the video game Mirror's Edge, that's basically a parkour video game, or Assassin's Creed, kind of the same thing. Yeah.
So my school's principal sent out this email saying that a number of kids have been using the school roof to do parkour. They get on top of the roof, they run all over the roof, and they jump from high surface to high surface. And it was really interesting. And understandably, the principal says, can you talk to your kids and make sure that they're not doing this? And this is a problem. It is a problem liability-wise for the school. But it's interesting how this is a direct response to the too safe playground kind of culture that we have. The fact that these kids are desperate to get out of school right now and they're looking for any kind of risk to take, and that there are so few risks that they can take in the society. So it's kind of interesting. I think that's a really interesting sort of commentary on the too safe society that we now live in, and the lengths that kids go to find anything sort of risky to do within their community.
That is fascinating. So how tall is the building? I'm just curious.
You wouldn't break your leg if you fell off onto the playground. Okay. It would be, I would, my old brittle bones, but a child probably wouldn't. Let's be real. My God, going down the stairs hurts. But it's high. It's probably 8 feet high. It kind of goes at a slope, so it's taller towards the middle of the building, but the roof comes down. But again, I find it so interesting that kids are doing this and want to do this. And again, they want. I guarantee you, these are boys. I don't mean to be gender specific, but I bet they're kind of looking for that adrenaline rush. And again, there's, you certainly can't play on playgrounds nowadays, and get that feeling because they're so boring. They're so safe. But again, I think that this is, it is, you mentioned, is there something that always happens around this time? And restless kids are definitely, common around this time of year.
All right. Well, see, my kids are already out of school, so they're now complaining about having to do chores around the house, and they would love to just sit and do nothing right now. They're not getting the chance to be restless. Meanwhile, in Maryland, not far from where you are in the D.C. area, Montgomery County, Danielle Mediv of Silver Spring, Maryland. You may remember that name. She is one of the free-range parents whose kids were taken by CPS. There was a huge investigation because she let her kids walk home from the park. Danielle Mediv is now running for the Montgomery County Council, Julie. She's I love this. I'd love to see that this is happening.
And occasionally you get people who don't envision themselves as policy people or ever being in that policy space where something happens to them and they say something's got to change. And these often make the best kinds of politicians, the ones that really are able to affect that change. So I think it's really exciting. I think this is great for the free range kid movement. I think that she could bring some real sort of rational thought and common sense back to those issues. So I'm glad to see it. I hope she gets a lot of support.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if that becomes an actual campaign issue. Because if you think about it, I mean, like in most, even like local races, free range kids calling, these don't become campaign issues. They never get talked about. So for that to be the backdrop of her running, it'll be interesting to see how that actually impacts what issues are discussed there in Montgomery County.
Well, what's interesting too is I think you and I have had these really interesting conversations about how these issues often cross party lines. I have very good friends who are right of me, much more conservative than I am, who think that free range parenting is horrible and they believe you should, helicopter your kids and keep a close eye on them and they're predators everywhere, And then on the other hand, I have some liberal friends who share my thoughts on free ranging. And so, it's not a slam dunk. It's not like, oh, well, she's running, then she's going to definitely get the Republican or the Democrat, because again, this issue crosses party lines. So it will be interesting to watch what kind of support she gets, and where her real support comes from.
Absolutely. Talking again with Julie Gunlock from the Independent Women's Forum. You can find Julie's writing at iwf.org. And you've got an event coming up into this month, Julie. I just saw this on the IWF website, a panel discussion featuring you and several other folks. What's the topic there from IWF?
Yeah, this is going to be really funny, and I'm going to bug you to come to this, as many of your team as possible, because it would be great to have you there. But it's on public health disasters, and we're going to focus on, there's many to talk about, but we're going to focus on just a couple. Nutrition, and these are, when I'm saying nutrition, I'm talking about, the government says don't eat eggs, and then 10 minutes later they say eat eggs, and then the CDC says you shouldn't have alcohol, and then 10 minutes later they say alcohol is great for cardiovascular health. It's this whole you can't keep track of how they change their minds on these things. The FDA's crackdown on sodium, trying to get food manufacturers to cut the level of sodium in their food. The latest research is saying, sodium doesn't really contribute to heart disease, stroke, cardiovascular disease, heart attacks. It's really awful that the FDA has been pursuing this policy in, contrary to the scientific studies. We're also going to talk about alcohol regulations. There is this sort of narrative that comes out of the CDC that everybody's an alcoholic, and especially women. They target women with these messages. It's not true. And we're also going to talk about, I know this sounds kind of strange to put in there, but we're also going to talk about pregnancy. As someone who's been pregnant several times, for each child, I got different advice. With each pregnancy, I got different advice, and that's frustrating for women. So we're going to talk about all those issues. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of food that the FDA would not approve of. We're going to have some cocktails, so it'll be a fun event. It's on June 29th, and you can check iwf.org for all the details.
All right. Julie, as always, appreciate you joining us, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks for letting me plug my event. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We'll let you plug it again next week, too. Maybe.
Okay, good.
If you're lucky. All right. Julie Gunlock joins us from IWF here on Cam & Company.